Mako at SeaWorld Orlando is the tallest and fastest roller coaster in all of Orlando. This B&M Hyper coaster stands tall over the nearby surroundings and offers amazing floater airtime. But just exactly how good is that airtime? In this video, I will review Mako and see just how good this Hyper is. SeaWorld has a long working history with ride manufacturer Ballagard and Mabillard. This dates back to 1993 when Kumba at Busch Gardens Tampa opened. This B&M looping coaster is raved for the positive G-forces during the inversions. This would spark a long working history between the two companies. In 1999, Busch Gardens Williamsburg in Virginia debuted Apollo's Chariot. This is the first hyper coaster B&M ever built. This coaster is raved for the solid floater airtime the whole way through. So many thought Busch Gardens Tampa and Florida would get a hyper of their own. However, the hyper coaster ended up shifting to SeaWorld Orlando. Keep in mind that this takes place post 2013. This means Blackfish at the time was still kicking SeaWorld in the nuts. Everyone was canceling them and was bleeding a crap ton of money. Around this time, SeaWorld shifted from animals to thrill rides. And considering that Busch Gardens Tampa had more stable numbers than SeaWorld Orlando, it made sense that they would get the big coaster to boost back attendance. So they contacted B&M to build their new for 2016 ride, Mako. Mako is a B&M hyper coaster. The ride stands 200 feet, 61 meters tall, with speeds of 73 miles per hour or 117 kilometers per hour, and traverses 4,760 feet, 1,450 meters of track. A coaster like this dawns over the surrounding rides and buildings. And luckily, Mako is well praised and one of the most popular rides at the park. When you go to ride Mako, the ride is located in the back of the park where their shark exhibit is. You usually have to walk past other rides to get to where the sharks encounter walk-through attraction and underwater grill restaurant is. The entrance is a little further behind the restaurant where you're greeted by the ride's finale and the plaza. I'll say this now, Mako has a great presentation. Now, this doesn't have much theming. If you want that, drive 10 minutes down the road to Universal. However, the station, queue, and plaza are set up nicely to look like a shipwreck. Mako is themed to a Mako shark, so the vibe is that you're a shark swimming through the area, and the purple and blue color scheme make it look not like a piece of crap. Now, when you go through this queue, while the surrounding looks nice, it's mostly just empty switchbacks and a staircase to the station. Luckily, you won't have to wait long for this coaster. Mako has a really good capacity for a standout coaster. The coaster runs 2 7-car trains with 4 riders per row for a total of 28 riders. And they're pretty good at running 2 or even 3 trains at some point. Aiding the operations are the fantastic B&M clamshell lap bars and no seat belts. The clamshells are big and easy to check, but the design allows for maximum airtime. To put this into perspective, SeaWorld is technically one of my home parks. I say technically as in I reside 2 hours away from the Orlando parks. And I've been going here since 2019, yet I've never seen them run just 1 train, at least on Mako. And whenever I ride, I only see them stack half the time as they roll trains. That's honestly really impressive because SeaWorld isn't exactly known for speedy operations. This means you don't have to run like you're escaping the slave master for this ride. But to minimize the wait, I suggest waiting until later in the afternoon when the ride's wait will die down. When you board your trains, like I said, you only have that fantastic clamshell lap bars. They're big, but the design allows the airtime to come into full effect. Now, where should you ride on Mako? To be honest, the back and front rows are evenly good for me. You should try both as they do offer something good in each row. One cool touch is that the ceiling has a screen with sharks swimming, and when you dispatch, a custom soundtrack blares out. It's pretty cool. When you dispatch out of the station, you make a slight right into the 200-foot, 61-meter tall chain lift. This lift is decently fast, so you don't have much time to take in the view. Now, the position of the lift faces away from the park, but if you turn your head back, you do get a decent view of the park. Then you hit the 200-foot, 61-meter tall drop. This drop has some of the best floater airtime. The way you float out of your seat for several seconds is just heavenly. Of course, the airtime is much stronger if you're in the back. In the back, the airtime is much stronger. However, the front has more sustained air. The first element after the drop is this overbank. This doesn't offer too much force-wise, but the exit pulls very faint G's and even some faint airtime. But the next element is the best on the ride, the 5-second floater hill. With most great airtime, the airtime probably doesn't last that long. However, with this hill, Yes, the power is still floater, but the airtime feels like it lasts forever through the entire hill. And you appreciate it more since Mako is a very smooth ride. I should probably mention this now. Mako is an extremely smooth ride with no hint of a rattle. Some B&M Hypers can have really bad rattle in the valleys. Not Mako, you don't even notice any rattle. Needless to say, this camelback is one of my favorite elements. Next is the hammerhead turnaround. To be completely honest, this turnaround sucks ass. Not because it shakes crazy during the ride, but because it's boring. This turnaround offers no force and is there solely to turn the train around. This is not an issue exclusive to Mako. As of the recording of this, I've ridden 3 B&M Hypers. 4 if you include Gigas, and all the turnarounds was a big bore. But Mako returns to greatness with another fantastic camelback. Like the first camelback, this delivers on the sustained floater airtime. It's not as sustained since it's smaller, however this has a bit more force to it. However, there is a problem with this hill in that there's a trim on it. Now in the cooler months, the trims will be less noticeable since they act as speed monitors. However, during the summer months, those trims hit like a ton of bricks. The issue is that when the trims hit, the airtime ends abruptly while you're still descending. You're feeling the great airtime of this hill, all of a sudden, bam, you quickly slow down before you pull out. This is apparent if you sit in the back row where the airtime is much stronger. After this is yet another camelback with yet even more airtime. It's just like the one before it. The only difference is that there's a turn to the right when you descend. This adds a bit of laterals to it. Then comes the most powerful airtime on Mako, the speed hill. This speed hill is low and fast, which provides solid flow ejector. And before you ask, no, there's no ejector on this Hyper. If you want that, head an hour west for Iron Gwazi. Then you climb up with a pop of air into the mid-course brake run. The brakes here will slow the coaster down ever so slightly. The first half of Mako is nearly perfect. The airtime is some of the most fun you can have on a roller coaster, but the second half drops the ball in power. Don't get me wrong, the second half of Mako is still good quality. Didn't drop as hard as some other coasters. However, the second half isn't as good compared to the excellent first half. After the mid-course is a shallow drop that turns left. The airtime isn't as pronounced since you are slowed by a bit. This is followed by yet another airtime hill. However, depending on how hard the trims hit, this airtime hill doesn't have the power of the earlier hills. It's like a very weak floater during the element. After this are 2 overbank hills, each in the opposite direction, and they tilt you to the side, giving this weird lateral hang time. Once again, the airtime is not pronounced. Honestly, you traverse it a bit slowly. Then you finish out the ride with a sweeping turn over the path and the water into the brakes. If you sit on the left side, you'll feel like you can touch the water. As for this turn, no force exactly, but then again, Mako isn't exactly the most intense coaster out there. B&M Hypers in general aren't exactly known for their intensity. I think the only one known for being intense is Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia, but I haven't ridden that yet. Finally, you hit the brakes, completing 4,760 feet, 1,450 meters of track, and more often than not, they will roll trains, something you rarely find on a SeaWorld coaster. Now, there are a few elements of Mako I find to be okay, such as the first hill turn and the ending, but I can forgive that if it has plenty of elements to make it stand out. Lucky for Mako, the ride has a few elements that are top tier quality. The first half is one of the best on any coaster. If the second half kept the quality of the first, this would have been a perfect coaster, but as it stands, Mako is still a great coaster, and I have to give it credit for getting me into roller coasters, as this was one of my first big roller coasters. If you get the chance to ride it at night, take the opportunity and run with it. Not only will it likely be a walk-on, but also Mako runs faster. The lighting is 75% darker, as the only thing you can see are the spots of light from nearby buildings. So what would I rate Mako? Since this is my first review you viewers have watched, I'll go over the score again. Typically, I'll go over the pros and cons and rate it out of 100. If the coaster has any additional qualities that improve the ride experience outside the actual layout, it will get additional points. So for Mako, I'll give it an 88 out of 100. 80 points for the amazing first half, with an extra 8 points for the presentation and operations. It won't get a perfect score because the second half doesn't stick to the glory of those airtime hills, but it is still really good. In Florida, there's always a debate between Velocicoaster and Iron Gwazi for the best coaster not only in the state, but also in the world. But Mako solidly places 3rd place in its territory. Considering SeaWorld Orlando is right in between Disney and Universal, Mako is an excellent coaster you should try while in Orlando. So that is my review of Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. This series is meant as a filler for my more ambitious videos and also allows me to express my thoughts with less effort and less time, even though I have really bad procrastination. If you want to hear more of my thoughts such as God damn it, I need to go to more parks. But when I eventually do and you want to be ready, hit the like button and smash the subscribe button. This convinces the YouTube algorithm to push this content to more viewers. Then again, this only takes me a few days to make. Well, besides this. Finally, I have this video that explains what happened to SeaWorld when this was built. This is the coaster flood, riding out.